When we talk about Jujutsu Kaisen's most favorited characters, Nobara Kugisaki often comes up in conversation. The endearingly abrasive tomboy sorcerer is one of the primary reasons for Jujutsu Kaisen's popularity, sparking many people's desire to pick up the series initially. To simply put, Nobara exemplifies what many people want to see out of a female shonen main character, which is pure badassery. But in the Shibuya incident, Nobara succumbs to Mahito in a very divisive moment for many, but no matter which side you sit on, I always thought, well, what if Nobara defeated Mahito in the Shibuya incident arc? What would that look like? How could it be achieved? And how would it affect her character going forward if she were to be alive? This video will contain spoilers for the Shibuya incident arc and will not be going into or hinting at events in future arcs past season 2. GamerSupps is on a roll. Use code CTactics to get the brand new Android 69 waifu cup, which drops, I don't know, today. And let me tell you, these sell out insanely quick, so pick one up along with some Jujutsu Kaisen Cursed Energy. Psst, that's my favorite flavor. This death was controversial with fans because some felt it didn't make sense for Nobara to leave herself open to Mahito. The decision felt arbitrary and rushed, which is something that Akutami has continued to do multiple times, much to the dismay and chagrin of fans of Jujutsu Kaisen, facing heavy criticism and backlash pretty much each time he has done something similar. So, let's do it differently, shall we? So, I felt the best place to start with this scenario is with the short fight with Haruta. Nobara and Nita Akari are both together with Maki and Naobito, but eventually split off, just like they do in the show. And the reason for this is simple. That setup is good, as the two's ultimate goal is to relay information from Gojo's ceiling if necessary, along with other valuable information, but as well reunite with Yuji Itadori and Megumi to reinforce and back them up or bail them out. However, upon splitting up, they are confronted by Haruta, who earlier on nearly killed Ijichi. Seeking to play with his food, so to speak, he wastes no time launching his attack, which forces Nobara to now not only fight Haruta, but also protect the vulnerable Akari. And due to Haruta's genuine craziness, making all of his behaviors unpredictable and his technique, which also adds a slight advantage on top of how powerful he already is, the ability Miracles employs a unique technique that effectively erases small miracles, like the synchronicity of digits on a clock from his life. The memories associated with these miracles are then stored, visually indicated by distinctive marks beneath his eyes. These stored miracles are strategically released when Haruta faces life-threatening situations, manipulating his luck to guarantee his survival against potentially fatal strikes. Once a miracle has been utilized, then that corresponding mark transforms into a distinctive white hue. However, the biggest downside is that Haruta has zero clue what this technique even is, what it does, or how it even works, which is a unique quirk of his character that balances out his technique, as it's essentially a get-out-of-jail-free card for any fatal attack against him. Initially, Haruta uses his luck advantage to take the lead in the battle. Each strike that Nobara tries to land is blocked by Haruta, leading to even more punishing blows against herself. So much so that Nobara is seemingly down for the count, and so Haruta goes to torture Akari. But the valiant Nobara gets back up and, pun intended, nails a couple of blows on Haruta using her hammer and nails. Turns out that while Haruta's strikes were strong, Nobara is simply tough, which plays into her character's strength, being a wild tomboy and can take, just a few more hits than usual, but not many more, as Haruta is still holding the advantage overall. Now, Nobara, who underestimates Haruta initially, quickly realizes that despite his perceived strength, there is more to him and susses out that Haruta's secret technique, figuring it must have to do with the marks on his face changing color. She concludes that it must have to do with her hits not landing at all, as she deduces that in previous battles with other opponents, her attacks should have landed, especially with opponents in similar strength to Haruta. She doesn't know for sure what it is, but it must be something that affects her attacks, as every time she was sure it would be fatal, as that is what she intended the attacks to be. She also figures that since her attacks landed on Haruta when he wasn't looking, it could have to do with his sight and what he is focusing on, so she decides to, despite having no experience in battles, have Akari get involved. Quickly, Nobara uses her seemingly boundless pool of cursed energy, which is her specialty. She begins to attack Haruta to waste time and distract him until she can get over to Akari, which she eventually does. There, she tells Akari that she has a plan and to follow her lead, and that most importantly, the only way they make it out alive is if Akari is ready to fight. Reluctant, she nods in determination, knowing that there are no other options left and that they can't fully rely on Nanami showing up, as the situation they're currently in is wildly unpredictable, even though they know he is on the way. So, Nobara taunts Haruta, which works because of Haruta's fragile ego. This allows Akari to seemingly run away, but unbeknownst to him, this is a part of the plan. He chooses to underestimate his opponents because he relies too much on a technique he knows nothing about. Akari goes to the second floor to find anything to use for their plan. Meanwhile, Nobara goes toe-to-toe with Haruta, fearless and knowing that she can defeat him with the help of Akari. She immediately pulls out her straw doll effigy and tells Haruta she plans to share damage between the two and pours cursed energy into it. But in a split second, Haruta, realizing something is off, looks up and we see Akari jumping from the second floor with a fire extinguisher for emergencies, landing a hit on Haruta and nearly knocking him out. But due to Haruta's luck, he stays conscious but shocked at what just happened, believing it to be a miracle in of itself that she landed such a hit, surmising it must be because he was too focused on Nobara and thus resolves himself. With Akari in shock and now injured due to jumping from the second floor of a balcony, Haruta now stabs Akari in the lower stomach, which causes Nobara to lose her cool for a moment, as Haruta possibly has mortally injured the manager. As Haruta continues to stab Akari, moving to the thigh, from out of nowhere, Nanami finally arrives, wraps the tie around his fist, and goes to town on the pipsqueak. Whatever his ability was before, it now means nothing, as Haruta is, well, nothing to Nanami. So just like in the anime, Haruta is eventually destroyed by Nanami. The reason I changed the fight the way I did is because I felt like Nobara and Akari could have done more in the original fight. Sure, Haruta is powerful, but Nobara is also being considered as a grade 1 sorcerer, and with her potential in mind, I felt this fit a little better than her just being whiffed by Haruta like she was, while still showcasing the danger Haruta imposes. Because I do think Nanami showing up was still the right decision, but this made it feel more like Nobara and Akari struggling for survival and using their wits and teamwork to stand equal to Haruta. And of course, it's a good setup for when Nobara uses her effigy in the fight to come with Mahito. I think overall, it's just more of an interesting fight and gives Nobara fans some fan service, which honestly, the original didn't really do at all. So this brings us to Nobara versus Mohito. Forgot Google Docs autocorrects Mahito to Mojito sometimes. Well, autocorrect aside, the initial confrontation in the alleyway is 100% the same. I think the setup for a fight is pretty much perfect. There's nothing I'd change, except for one thing. As Mahito flees from the fight, Nobara, being a smart gal, knows to be careful and on her toes, ready for literally anything. She cannot afford to be caught off guard like she was with Haruta, which prepares her for this fight. So using that recent experience, she takes the plunge and follows Mahito, but with ultra caution to ensure she is not blindsided again. This pays off, as making her way down the stairs, she locks eyes with Yuji for just one moment. Knowing Yuji isn't stupid, she directs her attention to Mahito, who runs past his double. Nobara realizes that the Mahito, oh, so it's back to normal. Mahito she fought couldn't have any notable powers. So in other words, it has to be his double, and in just an instance, both Yuji and Nobara in unison use their versions of Black Flash, destroying both Mahito's and forcing them back together as one. Yuji then tells Nobara to be careful and to not let him touch her. Doubling up, Yuji attacks Mahito relentlessly, impressively dodging attacks at close range, while Nobara, in between the gaps of fighting, keeps Mahito on his toes at long range. At one point, Mahito forces them in between a wall and a transfigured fleshy wall against them, trapping the the two between a literal rock and a hard place and nearly crushing them. But the two, using their collective strength and minds, break out in unison, which ticks Mahito off but ultimately delights him all the same. He's crazy, folks. After all, this is a real fight and he cannot wait to kill Nobara in front of Yuji, which is his ultimate goal. So Mahito, while trying to keep an eye on Yuji, ultimately is dead focused on Nobara. He begins to search for any opening he can attack Nobara, which both of the others realize, obviously. And thus, for the second stage of the fight, the battle is all about Yuji protecting Nobara and Nobara trying to maintain her hold on the battle to give Yuji chances to where he can attack Mahito's obvious openings, as he's too focused on Nobara. And really, it's a spectacle. It's like a dance between two people who know each other inside and out as they force Mahito through elevator shafts and deadly face-to-face battles together. As Mahito gets close, Yuji can either stop him from attacking Nobara, Nobara can retreat enough to continue her hold, or she simply can land an attack stopping him. At one point in the fight, Mohito tries to fool Nobara by using transfigured humans, but Yuji can warn Nobara, causing her to jump back just in time. Finally, they think they have Mahito at the end of his rope, deciding how to use Black Flash once more, but this time using the great cursed energy of Nobara to their advantage. Nobara will be the anchor of the next Black Flash, and as they both go to use Black Flash in stereo with a little bit of extra mustard, like the father-son Kamehameha, out of nowhere, Mahito using it double from his head to evade the Black Flash in the last second, allowing the double Mahito to take the full brunt of the attack, exploding the top portion of his body into chunks and bits of stitched together meat. Simply put, the two are too much to handle. Thus, in an attempt to get Nobara quickly, uses Gojo's domain expansion for 0.2 seconds. This allows Mohito to lunge at Nobara and touch Nobara's face, except Nobara isn't stupid as we established. After being told by Yuji to make sure she stays aware of his abilities, she draws in her cursed energy and can essentially stop herself from being fully transfigured due to adequately preparing herself before the fight even began. So, after the domain expansion ends, as Yuji watches in horror, Mohito has successfully transfigured a portion of Nobara's face, as all she can do is turn and look at Yuji. The flashback sequence then occurs, showing her childhood like usual, but after the flashback, Yuji staring at Nobara in true horror, frozen in place, Nobara's face explodes in a shower of blood. In disbelief, Yuji realizes that Nobara could be dead here, and as Mahito goes to attack Yuji due to the opening of being shocked, Aoi Todo arrives to save Yuji and Nobara with the help of the other Nita, Arai. Arai informs both Aoi and Yuji that Nobara has been gravely injured but is still alive and in a stable state thanks to her smart and quick thinking from earlier using cursed energy. But still, for a moment, as Yuji lay in a pool of tears and disbelief, he thought for sure that Nobara was dead. Yuji then remembers all that Mahito has done to him. He killed Junpei, he killed Nanami in front of his own eyes, and he sealed his sensei and allowed Sukuna to destroy Shibuya. For Yuji, this is more than enough to awaken a raging beast inside of him, and together, he and Aoi team up to not only avenge the gravely injured Nobara, but also those whom Mahito killed. Yuji trades a sister for a brother, and the fight continues as we know it and love it. They aim to take down Mahito as Geto quickly comes to the aid of the latter. So what I did here is I ended the fight basically the same, much like the fight with Haruta, as the skeleton of this fight is pretty much perfect, but I took the rushed elements, fleshed them out a bit more, and aimed to show how Nobara learned from her fight with Haruta. This in turn allows Nobara to use methods to protect herself from Mahito's transfiguration. Also, the reason I still ended the fight with Nobara nearly dying is because I think Nobara's character is much more interesting with her alive but still disfigured from the transfiguration. I would have Nobara be mentally and physically scarred from this battle. For the rest of the series, she would sport a scar across her face, much like Urahime currently does, and the character would take a little bit of a dark twist because, I mean, the scar is just too cool not to utilize and base her personality around and, you know, play with it a little bit. It would change the tone of Nobara's character completely. We'd still see the fun-loving shopping freak and good boy-loving goober, but it would be a little more subdued in place of a Nobara who is reeling from her fight with Mahito mentally. This opens up, in my opinion, such a cool avenue for Yuji and Nobara to grow closer as a team, a tag team of sorts. Both are scarred mentally from what Mahito has done to them in the experience in Shibuya. This both drives them in different ways and shapes them both. Yuji continues on along with his path while Nobara becomes just a little bit more vengeful and subtly more crazy due to Mahito ruining her, quote, pretty face. Every time she looks in the mirror, it's a constant reminder that Mahito and Geto in the larger context of events have taken something precious from her, which is her beauty. Nobara's once pretty face is now covered in scars, just like Mahito's was, and most importantly, now sporting a missing eye and a reminder of the purity that was taken from her. The scar reminds her that she's still alive in this hellhole that she didn't create, but she will end herself, and she will not rest until they are all dead. And of course, they is sort of ambiguous. This forces Nobara's character to become much stronger as it drives her to train more and more, which could also mirror Gojo's character when he trained to become stronger, ignoring Geto, which is a part of what created this entire situation in the first place. But will Nobara make the same mistake and isolate herself and go down the path of Geto? Or will she wake up and realize vengeance isn't the answer and come back to her precious friends that mean more than the world to her, Yuji and Megumi? I'd love a more demented and twisted Nobara that plays with her victims as she constantly is looking to see how much she can see them squirm. In a way, Nobara would also take on traits from Haruta and Mahito in the sense of how she now wants to be cruel and see the other suffer because, after all, she was a victim of Mahito and Haruta and wishes to deliver the same kind of punishment that she received. An eye for an eye, so to speak, right? So she does so by completely disfiguring her opponents in very slow, cruel, and calculated methods. If you guys want a part 2 of this, please get this video to 500 likes and share it out with your friends. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about Nobara's death in this what-if scenario I came up with. Thank you for watching, everyone. I'll see you in the next video. Stay strong out there and support one another. Bye-bye.